So what exactly happens to North Carolina's lineup when Seth Trimble comes back? I got some possibilities for you and my answer.
This is David Noel, and you're listening to Locked On Tar Heels.
You are Locked On Tar Heels, your daily podcast on the UNC Tar Heels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, what's up? It's Thursday, December 4th, 2025. Welcome into the Locked On Tar Heels podcast, the only daily North Carolina show out there. I am your host, Isaac Schade. You're joining me at the place to get your Tar Heels content every single day. It's all part of the Locked On Network now, the #1 sports podcast network. Thank you so much for making us your first listener watch to get your Thursday going the right way. Special shout out to all the everydayers who have joined us, all the members of the Locked On Tar Heels Discord as well. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if that bet wins, you're going to get $300 in bonus bets to use all across the app. Download it and get started today. Coming up on the show today, we had a really interesting question in the Kentucky Live postcast about what North Carolina will do with their lineup once Seth Trimble comes back. So I've spent some time thinking about that, and I'm ready with my answer for you. Also, want to talk some about, what Carolina, now having beaten Kansas and Kentucky, there ain't many losses left on the non-con schedule. How will Carolina do? Also, speaking of wins, when you win a lot of basketball games, good things happen. Carolina moving up some lists and some ranks and all of that. We're going to get into all of it on today's show. You ready? Let's go. So on the live postcast after Carolina's 67-64 win over Kentucky on Tuesday night, Michael Gerbis, I hope I'm saying Michael's last name correct, says, I'd really like to know what the lineup is going to look like when Seth Trimble returns. Me too, Michael. Me too. In all seriousness, I've been wondering this a lot. And so when you posted, I was like, yeah, we need to talk about that on the show because I'm sure it's not just me and it's not just Michael wondering that. So I've got some possibilities for you that I want to lay out. I've also got what I believe will be my answer. Speaking of which, all of you who are here with us, I would love to hear your answer. And I'm sure others would enjoy hearing that as well. So come join with us in the Locked On Tar Heels Discord and engage. If you're a Locked On Tar Heels insider, let's message back and forth about it. Would love to hear your thoughts. Let me first and foremost say this. When Seth does come back, I believe the top 8 is, in some form, Kyan Evans, Derek Dixon, Luka Bogavac, Seth Trimble, Jarin Peterson, Jonathan Powell, Jarin Stevenson, Caleb Wilson, and Henri Veesaar. And then you got to add in Zayden High as the 9th, but it's tough. He's probably higher on the depth chart in terms of need, but lower on the depth chart in terms of success thus far this season. That's an issue. So, because that's the problem. Unless you adjust, none of those 8 are your backup 5. So here are some options of what you would do once Seth is back. Let me first say this. Every one of these options has 2 things that I'm not even considering changing. I'm a guy that's always open to, like, let's think outside the box. Who do you want to bring in? Who do you want to drag out? Let's try some things and see what sticks. But there are 2 positions that there is not a snowball's chance that I am changing. And that is at the 4 and at the 5. That is Caleb Wilson and that is Henri Veesaar. And, you know, knock on wood, injuries aside, those 2 dudes are locked in as locked in can be. So I'm only going to say, as I give you these different options, I'm only going to mention positions 1, 2, and 3 because 4 and 5 are set. So number 1 option, you go once Seth is back with the same lineup that you used the first 2 games of the season against Central Arkansas and Kansas. That would be, in addition to the 4 and 5, Kyan Evans, and in that regard, Luka would then move back to the bench. Second option, keep the lineup as it's been since Seth went out. So Seth is out. You got the same 1 and 3 of Kyan Evans and Jarin Stevenson, and you slot Luka Bogavac into the 2. Makes some sense to me. You know, those are the 2 starting lineups we've seen this year. But another one, and we talked about this on yesterday's show, is as Derek Dixon comes along, will he worm his way into the starting lineup? So one of the possibilities is that you have, this is the third option I want to propose, Derek Dixon in place of Kyan Evans with either Seth Trimble and Jarin Stevenson or Luka Bogavac and Jarin Stevenson with Derek as the starting one. Another possibility, this is the fourth one, is both Derek Dixon and Kyan Evans. You could see that as a reality with Jarin Stevenson at the 3 and obviously the same 4 and 5. As I said, we're not doing that. Now, all of those scenarios so far have had Jarin Stevenson at the 3. And that's another thing we got to wrestle with a little bit. Would there be a starting 5 you could envision that doesn't include Jarin Stevenson? I don't think so. But I want to think about it, and I want to give it its due diligence to process it. Because let's think back to last year, and I know this was out of necessity, but Seth Trimble started at the 3 a good bit last year. Luka Bogavac has the size where he could start at the 3 some. So you could do either of those guys with any combination of the other guards at 1 and 2. So let's say you've got Luka at the 3, then you could go Derek Dixon, Kyan Evans, or Seth Trimble at the 1 and 2, 2 of those 3. Or if you start Seth at the 3, some combination of Luka, Derek Dixon, and Kyan Evans at the 1 and 2, right? Like you got a lot of different possibilities and iterations there. And I haven't even mentioned Jonathan Powell. He's been coming along lately. I mean, there is a world in which you give him a look in the starting 5 as he becomes more and more comfortable with this team. So those, in my mind's eye, are your possibilities. The next question then is, all right, Isaac, what would you actually do? Initially, I would ease Seth Trimble back in, similar to last year. Remember, Seth had been starting. He had his concussion, his head injury. When he came back, Carolina brought him off the bench to give him time to reacclimate himself. I would do something like that. Initially, I would ease him back into the lineup and into the rotation by bringing him off the bench. And remember, this question originated as, what do you do when Seth is back? So focused on Seth, there's a world in which when he's first back, you don't change your starting 5 at all. And you bring Seth off the bench. It just changes the bench rotation and the depth rotation as Seth works back in. But I got to tell you, I have really, really struggled with what I would ultimately land on for the starting 5 once Seth is back and ready to be a starter again. So let's start in the front court because, again, I'm not changing anything there. Henri, Veesaar, Caleb Wilson, locked and loaded. I would keep Jarin Stevenson at the 3. I think the length and size that he brings in tandem with Stevenson, with Wilson and Veesaar, just gives you an advantage that not many other teams in the entire nation have, save maybe Florida. And so I would stick with Jarin there, his defense, all of that. Unmistakable advantage for Carolina in that regard. Then when Seth is ready, I truly would bring him back to be the starting shooting guard. I just believe that Carolina has not been the same level of explosive that they were in those first 2 games with him. The athleticism he brings, the ability to get to the rim by just about any defender is unlike what Carolina has with other players. And so, plus, that's not even mentioning the senior leadership that Seth brings to the table. Like having that as part of the starting group and to set the tone of this is who we are from the gate. That's something that not really anybody else is going to be able to bring. So I would bring Seth back into the starting lineup. And then for now, I personally am not ready to move Derek Dixon into the starting lineup, which is no slight to Derek Dixon. It's just, I would continue right now to roll with Kyan Evans. There might come a time this semester when that changes, but it's not yet. I'm not ready to do that. And I don't think it would be wise or prudent for the coaching staff to do so either. So my starting 5, once Seth is ready and back, Kyan Evans, Seth Trimble, Jarin Stevenson, Caleb Wilson, and Henri Veesaar, with a bench chiefly made up of Derek Dixon, Luka Bogavac, Jonathan Powell, and a little bit of Zayden Hyde. That's the thing, man, is it so much like last year where the better players you have are all in the backcourt and wings, And you wish that was spread out a little more, because the top 8, in my mind, does not include Zayden High. So then you got to think a little bit differently. But also, when I think about this starting 5, Evans, Trimble, Stevenson, Wilson, Veesaar, the defensive capability of that quintet is crazy town, what they could bring to the table. And you see how Carolina already is defensively. I love that they're having to learn to do it without Seth, but you enter him back into the mix. Holy cow, watch what the Tar Heels are going to do. So that would be my starting 5. And I will give this caveat, one other option for right now. One of the things I've said consistently about Jarin Stevenson is I love that there's so much that he brings to the table to help impact winning in a multitude of ways that doesn't just involve scoring. However, so far this season, he's not brought much scoring punch. He's not been hitting from outside. He's been more aggressive than he was a lot of his time in Alabama, but the scoring punch hasn't been there. So maybe there's a game where you want to add more scoring punch. And in that regard, I would actually, and now I wonder if I'm talking myself into this, I would go back to what I said in the offseason leading up to the season, that my starting 5 would be Kyan Evans, Seth Trimble, Luka Bogavac at the 3, Caleb Wilson, and Henri Veesaar. That gives you a lot more scoring capability. And then what that allows you to do is have Stevenson be the first big off the bench. And that mitigates the amount of time that you have to use Zayden High. So actually, you guys, in real time, am I talking? Yes, I've changed my mind. Kyan Evans, Seth Trimble, Luka Bogavac, Caleb Wilson, Henri Veesaar, with Stevenson the first big off the bench, Derek Dixon the first guard off the bench, followed by Jonathan Powell. And that's what I would do. I think that puts Carolina's personnel in the best situations to do the most good for the team. You might wholeheartedly disagree with me, and I would love to hear. I love those conversations. Let's talk more about it. But that's where I'm at right now. Okay, it is now a reality that Carolina could not only go 3-1 in this tough 4-game stretch that we talked about, but could also go 12-1 in non-con play. That would be incredible stuff. We'll look at that reality and the possibility of it coming up in just a second. Right after I tell you about Aura Frames. The holidays are officially here, which means gift hunting season is on. And if you want something meaningful, personal, and guaranteed to get a reaction, Aura Frames is the gift that delivers every single time. It's not just something you wrap, it's a way that you share memories, because Aura isn't your average picture frame. You can preload the frame with photos before you give it, so that when whoever it is that's getting it plugs it in, the memories are already there. There's no apps to figure out. There's no setup headaches, just instant smiles. So maybe you're wanting to give it to your parents or grandparents or nieces or nephews, brothers, or whoever it is. Man, what an awesome, great gift that keeps on giving as you add more and more pictures and videos to it, because there were endless uploads of pictures and up to 30-second videos through the Aura app. And you can add a personalized message right inside the frame so that the gift feels even more thoughtful the second that it's opened. And I love it too, because the packaging comes gift ready. There's no price tag and no wrapping needed. It's a huge win. So for a limited time, save money on the perfect gift by visiting auraframes.com to get $35 off Aura's best-selling Carver matte frames, named #1 by Wirecutters, by using promo code COLLEGE at checkout. Again, that's auraframes.com, promo code COLLEGE. This deal, by the way, this is cool. It's exclusive to our listeners, and the frames sell out fast. So order yours now to get it in time for the holidays. Support the show by mentioning Locked On Tar Heels at checkout. Terms and conditions apply. Thanks for making Locked On Tar Heels your first listen or watch of the day, and thanks for making the Locked On Network the #1 sports podcast network. Really, really appreciate it. Okay, rewinding just a little bit to the lead into Feast Week. I talked a good bit about how Carolina was entering this 4-game stretch of St. Bonaventure, Michigan State, both those games in the Fort Myers tip-off, and then the game at Kentucky in the ACC SEC Challenge, and then wrapping it up by hosting Georgetown on Sunday, December 7th. That's this upcoming Sunday. And we looked at possibility, I did polls and all this of how Carolina would fare. And interestingly enough, the biggest answer to that question was 3-1. Like every poll I did, Twitter, YouTube, the Locked On Tar Heels Discord, all of it 3-1, got like 50% of the vote each time. And now it's looking like that reality is going to come true, because I think what people ultimately thought would happen is that you beat St. Bonaventure, you beat Georgetown, and then you go 1-1 against Michigan State and Kentucky in some order. So far, that's exactly what's happened. Carolina took care of St. Bonaventure on the Tuesday of Thanksgiving week, lost to Michigan State in a game that, quite frankly, they could have won. They could have won that basketball game. And then beat Kentucky on Tuesday evening. And when you think about, again, doing that without Seth Trimble, let me continue to remind all of us that when he went down, my brain immediately turned to this stretch and I thought, oh no, the Tar Heels very well, very easily now could end up losing to both Michigan State and Kentucky. Like, it's that much of a impact to the team. And thankfully, Carolina did not do that. But so now you're looking at Georgetown hosting them, and that's a great opportunity. Carolina will be favored in that game when the FanDuel line comes out. And so let's say that Carolina does go 3-1 in that stretch, which would be incredibly cool. I mean, at worst, you go 2-2. The problem, though, right now is that as you look at the quads, and we'll talk actually more about that in segment 3, but when you look at the quad system right now, Georgetown is low enough in the net rankings that that's a quad 3 game. You cannot afford that loss. That was part of what killed Carolina, was it last year, losing at home to Stanford? You remember that? That was the biggest ding on Carolina's resume. So simply cannot afford that loss. But here's where your brain starts spinning, is after this 4-game stretch, after the Georgetown game, there are now only 5 remaining games in non-conference play, including the Georgetown game, I guess I should say. There's Georgetown, there's USC upstate, ETSU, shouts to Johnson City, where my parents and where Coach Rob live. ETSU is right there. Then Ohio State in the CBS Sports Classic on Saturday, December 20th, followed by ECU, East Carolina. That'll wrap up non-con play. Those are the 5 remaining games right now as the Tar Heels currently sit at 7-1. If you start looking ahead at it, which I know the players and the staff can't do, but you and I can because it's our job, right? KenPom favors the Tar Heels in all 5 of those games, some by more points than others. Georgetown, Carolina by 12, USC upstate by 25, ETSU by 15, Ohio State close, favored just by 1, and then ECU by 23. If you go look at barttorvik.com, same thing. Carolina favored in all 5 games. Georgetown, 12.6 points. He gets down to the 10th place. USC upstate, 30.2 points. ETSU, 20.2. Ohio State, very close here, 0.9 of a point. And ECU, 25.3. So you start to think about it and your brain starts to wonder on, oh man, not only is 3-1 a possibility in this 4-game stretch, is 12-1 a possibility in the course of non-con play. But here's what the team cannot do. They simply cannot afford it, is to sit there and get fat and happy because you think you accomplished something by beating Kansas and by beating Kentucky. This team is very much still a work in progress that on Sunday could be lackadaisical coming into it, could be easy peasy. Hey, we're going to handle Georgetown, and then you get beat on your home floor and it's a quad 3 loss. So as soon as you get pleased with yourself, as soon as you're content with what you've done, no. So the players, rather than getting fat and happy, have to focus not only game to game, but literally possession to possession as they continue to grow in chemistry and connectivity to one another. The singular worst thing you can do is give away what you've gained by those 2 high major blue blood wins. So yeah, you beat Kansas. Yes, you won at Kentucky, but you didn't beat Michigan State and you looked bad down the stretch. And so if you drop in, like, these are games not only that Carolina should win, but frankly, they need to, if they want to continue to build an NCAA tournament resume. And so the worst thing you can do is give back any of that goodwill that you've gained with the voters, with the selection committee. You can't fool the computers, obviously, but when people see, when the humanity of it, when I see you beat Kansas and when I see you beat Kentucky at their place, that does a lot for me. I think back to last year where Arkansas with John Calipari now in as a hog went back to Rupp, and they had been terrible in SEC play, but they won that game. Arkansas goes on a run and ends up making the NCAA tournament. That, in my mind, was triggered by that win at Rupp. That's what Carolina can build on, but they cannot drop one of these final 5 games. So beyond that, as you start to think about, all right, is 12-1 an actual possibility for Carolina? Well, keep in mind, there is a big difference in being favored in 5 individual games and being favored in a group of 5 games. Does that make sense? Like the percentages drop as you take those games as a group instead of one by one. And so, yes, Carolina should win them all, but my goodness, you cannot ease up. You gotta get after it. Game after game after game. You got to grow. You got to want it. You got to be thirsty and hungry for it. You got to fight like you did for every offensive rebound against Kentucky. I was so impressed by that. But the second you let up on that, just like Rudy Rudiger, if you let up just 1 inch, I will throw your butt off this team so fat. You remember that scene, right? Like that's what we're talking about. By the way, trivia question for you. Here we go. I went back and looked. When is the last time that North Carolina started at least 12-1? I'll give you a second to think about it, or you can just pause it, and I'm going to count down from 5 and give you the answer. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The last time the Tar Heels started at least 12-1 was the national championship season, not 16-17, 2008-9. So that's Hansbrough, Lawson, Ellington, Danny Green, that whole team was the last time Carolina started off at least 12-1. They were 13-0 that year. Crazy, crazy stuff. Remember, they lost those 2 games right at the beginning of ACC play, Boston College and who was the other one? I remember it was Boston College. Was it Wake? I think it might have been Wake, with a win, another non-con win in between. So Carolina went 14-0 in non-con play that season. So really, really, really good stuff. But Carolina has a chance now to do something. You hear me? That's not been done in like over a decade and a half. But they gotta keep locked in. And because they've been locked in, some of the rankings are starting to take notice. Even some of the computer rankings are starting to take notice. What does that mean, and what kind of position does it put the Tar Heels in? I'll set that up for you coming up to wrap the show in just a second. Right after I tell you about FanDuel. NFL Sundays, man, they move fast. One big play and suddenly everything feels different. And that's what makes live betting with FanDuel so fun. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds live. Every drive, every momentum swing, and every highlight moment. Live betting is best when the game starts to shift. Maybe a receiver gets hot, a defense tightens up, or the momentum flips after a big turnover. FanDuel lets you jump into those moments because the live spreads, the money lines, they adjust instantly. The player prop updates as the player heats up. You can bet things like next touchdown scorer, the results of this drive, totals, so much more. It keeps you locked in to every snap, every drive, every possibility. ACC regular season championship odds. Duke still leads the way, followed by Louisville, but it's updated a little bit. Clemson and Carolina are now tied at plus 1,200, followed by State at plus 1,300. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, whether it's college basketball or the NFL, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you. You'll recall back on Tuesday of this week, after the net rankings had come out for the first time, we talked a little bit about it, and I said, y'all, this is kind of crazy. Carolina's 26th in the net, but I also said, look, here's the deal. When the net first comes out, it takes a good while to adjust and to start making it look like what we all think it should look like. There's always some bogeys in there, and I don't mean Luka Bogavac. I mean, like, that team shouldn't be where they are. They're way too high or way too low or something like that. But as it starts to get more data points, it becomes more accurate and it becomes better. So Carolina started 26th. Wednesday morning, following the win over Kentucky, Carolina jumped 11 spots because it's early. You're going to move a lot. So they jumped 11 spots from 26 all the way to 15. That's top 15. The good news is 2 quad 1 wins. They're 2-1 in quad 1 play, wins obviously over Kansas and Kentucky. The loss to Michigan State. They are 1-0 in quad 2. That's actually the St. Bonaventure game. Neutral site helps that. And as I said, the Georgetown game is going to be quad 3 because it's at home and you got to be top, I think it's 75 for a home game to be quad 2. Right now, they're just outside the top 100. So they'd have to grow quite a bit. And of course, if Carolina beats them, they're probably going to fall more. But that's going to be the first quad 3 game Carolina's played so far. And then the other bye games are all quad 4s. Carolina is 4-0 in those games. So things are looking good right now in the net. Here's the other piece of good news. As I'm recording, the second night of the ACC SEC Challenge is going on. So I don't have any of those results for you as of right now. But what I can say is that you see the results of conference success in non-con play. On Tuesday night, as Carolina beat Kentucky, 5 other ACC teams won and only 3 ACC teams lost. Consequently, it really helped some of the games that Carolina is going to play later in ACC play. When the net rankings first came out, 8 of Carolina's 18 ACC games are quad 1 opportunities. And that's great, particularly compared to last year. And I'll tell you that number here in just a second. But following all those ACC wins, on Wednesday morning, it flipped to where now 10 of Carolina's 18 ACC games are all quad 1 opportunities. That's over half of your 18 games as quad 1 opportunities. Last year, when we were still playing 20 conference games, only 6 of Carolina's conference games were quad 1. And that was why it was so hard to get meaningful opportunities. So the better everyone else is, the better opportunities you have for better wins. The other side of that is the fewer opportunities you have to take a bad loss. You know what I mean? So if, I don't know, like Miami winning at Ole Miss on Tuesday night, that's massive. So maybe that's a game that could have been quad 3. I don't know where Miami's at right now, but moves to quad 2. Even that's great because your resume can take a quad 2 loss. It's much harder to recover from a quad 3. So the more quad 1 and quad 2 games there are, the much better it is for Carolina. Actually, I could tell you what it is right now. I've still got everything pulled up. So ACC play, what I'm going to tell you is how many quad 3 and 4 games there are. 1 quad 3, 2 quad 3, 3 quad 3, 4 quad 3. I said far quad. 5. 5 quad 3 games, no quad 4 games. The other 13 are all quad 1 or quad. Well, I guess since there's 10 quad 1, it's got to be 3 quad 2s, including the final 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, the final 6 games of ACC play right now. 5 of them are quad 1s. 1 of them is a quad 2. That's so good for Carolina's resume chances and possibilities. I love it. I absolutely love it. Now, you got to go out and win the games. That's the other side of it. It's not just about the opportunities. It's about the success you have in them. So we'll see how it adjusts after Wednesday's games. But as of right now, things are looking much better for the ACC. And that's why, you want to cheer for the conference to do well in non-con play so that it helps Carolina's resume. By the way, also keep cheering for the other teams that Carolina played. Cheer like crazy for Kansas and Kentucky, as hard as that is to say, and Michigan State. You want those teams to win a lot of basketball games. Final thing I want to say about rankings is Joe Lunardi, every now and again when there's massive games, is starting to put out his little colorful sheet where he shows like, hey, here's where I'm moving people to with wins and losses. Following the Kentucky game, Lunardi has Carolina right now as a 4 seed. That's the highest I've seen them this entire season. And so, it's way too early to start thinking about bracketology with any seriousness. But the fact, this time last year, Carolina was not sniffing that. And right now, they are being considered as a top 4 team, a top 4 seed nationally. And the thing is, I know the rest of the non-con slate isn't world beater tough, but you got 2 more high major teams, Georgetown and Ohio State. You win those games and the others and let other teams around you start losing. Carolina's just going to keep creeping up. Keep winning basketball games. That's what the Tar Heels have to do, and avoid letdowns. You cannot afford that at all. All right, you guys, so fun. Great stuff today. A lot of fun to think about. Hey, what's going to happen when Seth comes back again? I would love to hear from you. What lineup do you think would be best to utilize there? I also remember, I forgot to mention to you, Coach Rob had 3 games this week in the span of 6 days. So I was like, Coach, I feel like you should just focus on your team this week and not come on the show. He's like, yeah, that'd be best. Thank you. So that's why Coach Rob's not here with me today. So Coach Rob, Buffs, we're thinking of you. We miss you. Hope it's been a great week of games. I need to check in on the schedule. If you have not subscribed to Locked On Tar Heels on video and audio, do that right now so you don't miss a second of the show. If you haven't joined our Discord, we'd love to see you in there, man. It's a great community of Tar Heel fans hanging out all the time, chatting. Also, if you want to go next level with the show, Locked On Tar Heels Insiders, it's a great way to connect with me and have free access to all of my stats and charts and data and record books. And by the way, for all of you, got a fun new announcement coming up, a great way for you to be able to go even more in depth with the show. We're going to announce that next week, so stay tuned for that. It's always a great day to be a Tar Heel. We'll talk again tomorrow. We'll preview the Georgetown game and the rest of the weekend as well. But until then, peace.